So when you open layout or import something from Modeler, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be in the camera view, and this object might very well be selected. So now how do you move the camera? Well, you can't really move it from here or here. You have to go down here. Click on the camera, activate the camera. You're not going to be able to move the camera unless you activate it. Now these, you won't see it here, but what's going to happen is that this one is going to be active. Move. So if I look in the perspective view now, you can see that this move tool is actually activated on that camera. So that means that I can just go like this and move around. And now the trick here is that I can press space, and that will go from move to rotate. So I can now move this one like that. I can also hold down the right mouse button, but you usually don't want to do that. Okay, so let's reset that value. So if you have something like this, you can go down here and just set that to 0. Pressing space again will go back to move. Actually, I have some shortcuts here, so yeah, okay, it will toggle between move and rotate. If you click on object and press space, it will also go to size and stretch. I was never really a fan of that, but so just be aware of that. Toggling in the modeler in the object mode is not the same as toggling in the camera mode. So you got also these options here, so you can size or stretch that as well. But we don't want to do that. Okay, so let's go back to the camera mode and move around. Now I can right click with move to go up, press space, or rotate to go down. So you just toggle with the space button really to move around and find your views. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it really. And of course you go by going to frame 10 and moving with auto hotkey all channels enabled. It means that you will create a frame there. Actually, let's make that frame on frame 30. So okay, so let's make a frame here. Move the camera here. And then if I scroll this back now, you'll see that it will go to my last saved camera position on frame 0. Now I can of course edit that by moving around and rotating and stuff, but unless you're on exactly that frame, it's not going to help you, because if you try to edit this 0 frame on frame 1, it's not going to work. It will still keep that 0 one. So if you want to edit a frame, be sure to be exactly on your 1 frame. Now to delete that junk frame 1, just hit delete and delete motion key at frame 1. So now that's gone. So I have a frame on 0 and 30, and I can maybe go to frame 50. See that? Made a frame again. Let's press space, move over here, press space, rotate, and now we got a new frame here. and a frame here, and a frame here. Let's just move a bit, move this slightly. I'll actually move it a bit backwards. So you can see that it moves like that. Let's look at this from the perspective view. See what it looks like. So you can see that's the path it's taking. In the perspective view, not the camera view, but the perspective view, 4 on the keyboard, you'll notice that, well, you can still toggle on the camera and move and rotate the camera, but you can also hold down Alt and move the perspective view. The perspective view is kind of like a temporary view, actually. It's just something, if you want to check your scene and not be in the camera mode, then you can go to perspective view. It might be a bit confusing actually to newbies. Now you can hold down Alt and Control to zoom in perspective view, or just Alt to rotate. An Alt Shift right click to move up and down. Now if you're a newbie, it might actually be easier to navigate like this, but maybe it's just better at the start to just animate the camera, because there are different shortcuts here, so maybe you don't want to do that, you know. You just want to stick to the camera view and edit from the camera. So so just think of perspective as like a temporary view, really. And why the shortcuts are different on perspective and camera view? A good question. I actually prefer to move in perspective view. In the lights mode, let's see what it toggles. It toggles the same, move and rotate. So actually moving the light, or if we go to our light view here and look through our light here, now we're seeing through that light view, and now I can move that light just like I move the camera by toggling the move and the rotate button. So if you want the light to be close to your camera, just go over to the camera, just go over here to your camera and go here, and now I can go to my camera view and you can see that this light now is moved. However, I moved it on frame 30, so let's just look from the perspective view how that looks. Now, since I moved that light on frame 30, you can see that now the light is moving. Maybe you didn't want that. Okay, if you didn't want that, what you can do is that you can, with your light selected, hit return, and you say, hey, I wanted that, I made a mistake, I wanted that to be on frame 0. So that's what you do actually. You just print 0 here and OK, and it will actually make a frame on frame 0. But you still got that frame on frame 30, so we'll delete that. So now it's only a frame on frame 0. What that means is that this, since it's on frame 0, it will keep that position throughout the entire timeline. So you can see that it's static. So if you want a light or a camera to be static, just go to frame 0 and edit it at frame 0. Do not edit it at, for example, frame 40, because that will create an animation. Now you can also move around using these symbols, but you probably don't want to do that, not as a newbie. Okay, so the camera is moving. Let me select my camera. I can actually click on my camera, but in order to do that, you have to remember, or have to have this option active. If you go like, oh, this is not working, then maybe this is not active. So I can click here again I can click on these guys to select them. Because I'm using a pen and not a mouse, that can actually be difficult. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to middle click and drag to select these guys. That's another way of doing it. Okay. Go to frame 30. And let's choose our camera view. So you can see that we got an animation here. But sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you want to focus on that sphere all the time. You want it to be in the middle view. You want it to be in the center. Now, the way to do that, if you always want to focus on that sphere, is to go to the camera view, click M, and target this sphere. So that means that the camera is actually going to target this sphere, always looking directly at that sphere. So you can see that the camera view shifted a bit. But now you can see when I scroll here, you'll always keep that sphere exactly in the focus, in the middle of the screen. That might be something you want. If you don't want that, just turn it off. Yeah. What else? I thought I could cover this one. That's in the camera view. Let's see. Yeah, that one only works in the perspective view. So if you want to move this stuff around, then yeah, that's how that works. Now if you want to zoom in on this, what you could do in the old days, you could click here and that would center that object. Then you'd have to zoom in again. This is in perspective view, however, so we're just going to drop that for now. The thing with that is that if you did that, it locked it. So there's no way for you to move the perspective view now. Holding down Alt and Shift is not going to do anything in the perspective view when this is on. So again, Alt and Shift, same thing with this one on. Alt and Shift, nothing happens. But again, as a newbie, try to stay away from perspective view for some time. Okay, so camera view. How will we do the same thing in the camera view? I don't think you can actually. You can't do that. You can't press A to zoom in on everything. That's just not possible. Maybe that would be a smart feature. Shift A, same thing. Those shortcuts only works in perspective, orthographic, or schematic. Okay, so that shortcut will only work in perspective view. So if I move around in the perspective view and I'm kind of lost here, if I want to zoom in on that one, say I had a clone on that, Control C to clone that thing or copy it, and it's going to be copied in the same position, of course, so I'll just move that over here. So say I wanted to zoom in on this one without clicking here, you could actually hit Shift A. Hitting only A would zoom in on everything. So yeah, and going like this, Shift A again will zoom in on these guys.